Now, for more analysis on the second day of testimony, our correspondent Susan Tehrani is now joining us live from New York. Susan, thanks for joining us. We just heard the second day of testimony of the top military leaders before Congress. General Mark Milley said clearly that the Taliban are still a terror group and have not broken ties with the Al-Qaeda. Tell us more about this.
Absolutely. General Milley really has been forthcoming regarding the Taliban. He wants to set the record straight. It's very clear on that front. He also made other statements that were bombshells, made headlines in the last 24 hours, making clear, contradictory to what Joe Biden said earlier in August, making clear that he and General McKenzie had advised the president to keep at least 2,500 troops in Afghanistan to potentially prevent a Taliban takeover. Of course, the commander-in-chief, Joe Biden, makes the ultimate decision. The reason this is noteworthy and made headlines is because Joe Biden said that no one told him that, or he doesn't recall anyone telling him that in an interview last August. He also wanted to address the media in his words, saying that his call with his Chinese counterpart was on the record. He did nothing wrong. So this is what we're hearing, similar comments to yesterday, but perhaps more broad-based today from a military standpoint. You see members of the Armed Service Committee, notably the Republicans, really honing in and wanting to learn more about what was said yesterday in detail regarding the 2,500 troops being kept there, regarding the over-horizon operations moving forward in Afghanistan, and also, as you mentioned, how these generals view the Taliban as well, and Bagram Air Base, why was it closed? Had it been perhaps open, the 13 lives would not have been lost, the 13 military lives in that August terrorist attack.
Susan, we heard General McKenzie comment on the strike that killed civilians in Afghanistan. He called it a mistake and took responsibility for this. Shed some light on this statement.
Really, a stain on this administration was, the debacle of the Afghan withdrawal. One of the main stains that will continue on this administration was that drone strike, considering the fact that after, again, that terrorist attack in August that killed 13 U.S. service members, injured scores of Afghans and Americans, the U.S. president said that we will hunt you down and we will come after you and you will be held accountable. We saw that drone strike taking place. A lot of murky details came out of it after that. I just want to round up to you that they didn't release the names of who were these quote-unquote ISIS operatives that were killed initially, and then we find out that there were no ISIS operative killed. It was 10 civilians, including 7 children. And then yesterday, we heard members of Capitol Hill in the Senate really press these generals, saying, did you follow up with the drone operator to tell him that he was not responsible? And it was the higher chain of command that was responsible, and we didn't really hear a clear answer on that. And I think General McKenzie wanted to go on record and say that I was the one responsible. But I think the question right now lies, and this has been a question since the past 24 hours, is not only this drone strike, but regarding the debacle in Afghanistan, how far and what will be the accountability of this debacle? This drone strike, the botched withdrawal, and moving forward, the exercises that were done in vain ultimately, and where we are right now. So accountability is a huge question right now, and I think General McKenzie admitting to that, this is going to have, there's going to be more questions regarding that, absolutely.
Right, Susan, we heard lawmakers from across party lines question the leaders. Now, Secretary Austin was quoted saying that he did not support staying on in Afghanistan. There was also a lot of discussion on the 2,500 troops as a number that were left behind, and if that was enough. How are these comments being perceived?
It's a cornerstone of this hearing. the 2,500 troops, there's a lot of Q&A going back and forth. But I think what was very noteworthy was the fact and the opening statements by Adam Smith, a Democrat from Washington, that really took a political turn on this case and defended vehemently Joe Biden on his statements saying that he doesn't remember or that no one told him about keeping the 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. His opening statements was that basically even if he was told staying in Afghanistan would have been a problem. He criticized those, he openly basically criticized the generals in his opening statement. He says, quote unquote, anyone who thought that we would keep 2,500 troops in Afghanistan, that notion is quote unquote idiotic, to compare it to a place like South Korea where we do have troops there. So we really see the Democrats pushing back on this notion. But on the other hand, a lot of Republicans are wondering why the president didn't follow the general's advice. But at the end of the day, again, we have to take into consideration that it is the commander-in-chief that makes the final decisions. But a cornerstone of this hearing is really about those 2,500 troops, because there is a question remaining not only in Washington but among policy thinkers as well, that if there was a minor presence in Afghanistan, would we be where we are right now?
Right, Susan, that's a very important point indeed. Thank you, Susan Tehrani, for joining us from New York with all those insights.